6 years ago today, Star Wars Battlefront was released, EA and DICE's first attempt in bringing back the beloved Battlefront franchise from the LucasArts days when they delivered two of the best Star Wars games ever. Well, it was DICE's turn for a more modern take on the beloved franchise. If this game never happened, then this channel would never have happened, and unlike the popular opinions for this game, I actually really liked its final product. And seeing as it's been 6 whole years since this game was released, which is just unbelievable, I figured I'd jump back into it in preparation for this video, discuss and celebrate the game, the positives, the negatives, a mini retrospective of EA's first dive into the Star Wars game universe. I will be doing the same thing for Battlefront 2, I believe it'll be tomorrow after this video is posted, for Battlefront 2's 4-year anniversary, and I literally just done one for Fallen Order's 2-year anniversary, so make sure you go check out that once we're done here. So let's dive into it. 6 years on, was Battlefront 2015 really as bad as many people suggest, or is it a hidden gem under all the controversy? Let's take a look back at EA's first Star Wars game. So there is a pretty strong stigma surrounding Star Wars Battlefront that it's not really a good game, and that's basically stemmed from how the game launched, and that's pretty much the conclusion that lingers among general people. For those who stuck around and were with the game to its end, you'd know it's obviously a bit of a different story. A lot of people, particularly those fairly entrenched in the Star Wars game community, tend to look back on this game fairly fondly, to be honest, and it's not really hard to see why. If you got the DLCs in the Season Pass, then yeah, you probably had a great time with this game. If you played it when it came out and then never came back to it because it was shallow and had barely any content, then yeah, you're probably going to think it sucked. Because let's be real, when the game came out, it did suck. Like, it wasn't a terrible game or anything. It looked incredible and it was great to enjoy the game's immersion into the Star Wars universe because graphics-wise, the game for 2015 was straight up one of the best looking games going around. But good graphics could only hold up a game for so long. Once the novelty of the game's visuals wore off, a lot of people started to see Battlefront for what it was, a rushed and shallow game. The progression was very basic, the customization was also very basic, and for some reason had helmetless stormtroopers, but I think the less said about that the better. It didn't have any form of a proper campaign. Instead, it had a single player mission mode that was clearly shoved in there to make up for it, and make up for it, it did not. It also had a diorama mode for some reason, and the amount of maps and game modes that the game had, it wasn't holding up as the weeks went by after the game's launch. It was very clear that this game was rushed out the doors so it could release in the hype period of The Force Awakens. 2015 was the return of Star Wars on the big screen, and the game's release schedule was relying on that to help its relevance, so instead of waiting a little bit to get the game right, it got rushed out the door, and whatever fixes and additions that were going to be made would have to come later on in post-launch. Now, talking about post-launch, that's when the magic happened for this game, but that in itself didn't come without controversy, understandably. This game's post-launch content would be from a paid season pass, and an expensive one at that. Looking back on it now, was the expensive season pass for this game worth it? I can't stress to you how much it was worth it. But that still doesn't excuse the fact that it was too expensive for a season pass, and because of that caused a lot of controversy and it split the player base into two, which obviously is not ideal, as finding games on servers outside the main European countries and the US wasn't exactly easy. It was a real struggle here in Australia for a while, and the games you did get had the exact same people in them each and every night you jump onto the game. So the season pass scuffed things up in terms of the player base, but in terms of the DLCs that the season pass brought with it, I had no complaints. The first of the 4 major DLCs to drop was the Outer Rim DLC, which included a bunch of weapons, some Tatooine maps, as well as Greedo and Nien Nunb as playable heroes. It was a badass DLC and added so much to the game. And that was then followed on by the Bespin DLC, which is one of my personal favorites. It introduced some new maps, more weapons, more game modes, and Dengar and Lando as playable heroes. This DLC was what made this game for me. I'd do unspeakable things to get full lobbies on Bespin these days. The Freezing Chambers map is my favorite Battlefront map probably ever. But the DLCs, they just kept coming. The Death Star DLC was next, which added the Death Star obviously. as well as a new multi-stage game mode which included an aerial phase taking down or defending a Star Destroyer, rescuing R2-D2 on the Death Star itself, and then a final trench run phase. It was pretty amazing. Along with this, we again got more weapons, as well as Bosk and Chewie as playable heroes. Overall, I loved this DLC. It was a bit leaner compared to the others, but it was still very, very good. And the final DLC that would round off the content for Star Wars Battlefront would be the Scarif DLC, which came out alongside Rogue One, which would drop a new game mode, Scarif as a playable map, new weapons and ships, as well as Jyn Erso and director Orson Krennic as playable heroes. So Battlefront definitely went out with a bang. All 4 of the DLCs were incredible. The quality of content, the feeling of the new DLC playlist dropping, it was a pretty awesome time to be a Battlefront fan. And of course, I was fully into it. I sweated, I got really good at the game, and then this channel came to be. Shame the ability didn't translate to Battlefront 2 as I am absolute dog water at that game, but oh well. So jumping back into Battlefront in 2021, 6 years on from its release, the game is definitely starting to feel very dated, the heroes in particular. Now Luke and Vader are the only lightsaber heroes in this game, and they feel absolutely horrible to use. They basically just have the same 2 swing animations for their lightsaber, and that's literally it. I will say though, I do prefer just how tanky heroes were in this game as opposed to Battlefront 2. Heroes are so powerful and basically one-shot everything, which obviously, like I said, is not the case in Battlefront 2 by a long shot. But nailing a rush with Luke and getting a huge multi-kill or a lightsaber throw with Vader down a narrow hallway, it's still just as satisfying today than it was 6 years ago. I will say this much though, jumping back into it, I had way more fun playing as infantry than I do in Battlefront 2. That might be a little controversial to some people, but I just enjoy playing as the trooper way more in Battlefront than I do in Battlefront 2. You can just do so much more, and it's largely because of the jetpack. I love the jump caster setup, with the pulse cannon as well, the cycler rifle, the scattergun. I really loved what this game done with the basic infantry. Now I do need to touch on the token system that this game had, of course. It was one of the biggest changes Battlefront 2 went with, completely ditching the token system, because it didn't matter how good you were at the game, it just came down to luck, or knowing the spawn locations of certain hero tokens or vehicle tokens. Now I know it's a flawed system, and it is best to not have this system in new Battlefront games, but the rush of seeing a hero token and darting over to it with your jetpack, it is a good adrenaline rush, as everyone who has seen it is racing there for it. I thought it just created a nice little in-game moment, but I do see the flaw in the system. But I do low-key miss the excitement of spotting that hero pickup. Now as for the maps in Battlefront, I gotta say, there are a bunch of maps from this game that I prefer over its predecessor. Now granted, some of them are actually in Battlefront 2, such as the Administrator's Palace map on Bespin, Jabba's Palace, Scarif, and the Survivors of Endor map, which supposedly is the Ewok Hunt map in Battlefront 2. But Sullust, the Bionip Laboratories, I think that's how you pronounce it, the Dune Sea Exchange, Swamp Crash Site, just some amazing maps. And to be fair, it's probably in the nostalgia talking, because I guess we can call it nostalgia as the game is 6 years old, but these maps were amazing. I think the overall design of the smaller maps in particular in this game are just so much better than the ones in Battlefront 2. A lot of the smaller Battlefront 2 maps are just small sections cut out of the bigger maps, whilst that is still the case with Battlefront 2015, but I feel like there's more of a separation from the big maps and the small maps in terms of keeping things fresh. I could definitely smash out the Battlefront 2015 map rotations much longer than Battlefront 2's and get way less sick of it. So overall, looking back on this game, which is now 6 years old, which is still just so crazy to think about. I know I've said that a lot here, but I still can't believe it's been out for that long. It's just nuts. So yeah, I really enjoyed going back and jumping into this game and finding games where I could. It was a lot harder than you'd think. It's just such a great game with amazing memories, and I think this game is always going to be a little bit special to me regardless of the general perception, because my channel wouldn't have existed without this game. So I owe a lot to this game, as I do with Battlefront 2, but this one is where it all started, so I think I'm always going to have a little bit of sentimental attachment to this game. But guys, go ahead and let me know down in those comments below what you think of 2015's Star Wars Battlefront. Do you love it? Do you hate it? which I understand there's probably going to be a lot of people that do, let me know. It's nice and refreshing to talk about this game and make a dedicated video on it, as I only really talk about this game once a year, so I hope you all enjoyed a trip down memory lane. Be sure to drop a like if you did enjoy the video. Keep an eye out for a video for Battlefront 2's 4-year anniversary coming. I think it'll be tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe and notifications on so you don't miss that. But that is going to do it for me today. Thanks for watching and take care.